Captain Peter Grant stood at the observation window of Unity Watch, staring at the stars beyond Earth's orbit. His reflection looked tired in the glass. 50 years had passed since humanity first made contact with alien civilizations, and 50 years since the Galactic Council decided Earth was not worth their time. The communication console behind him beeped softly. Lieutenant Karen Walsh turned from her station, her face showing the same frustration Peter felt every time this happened. "Another summit starting on Nexus Prime, sir," she said. "We picked up their opening broadcast." Peter nodded. He had expected this. The Council held these meetings 4 times a year, gathering hundreds of species to discuss trade, territory, and galactic law. Earth never received an invitation. Humanity never got a seat at the table. "Let me hear it," Peter said. Karen pressed a button. The voice that filled the command center belonged to Ambassador Velrin, a tall insectoid being who represented one of the Council's most powerful factions. His translated words came through clearly. "We gather again to ensure peace and prosperity across known space. All member species have sent their delegates. Together we are strong. Together we build a better galaxy." Peter felt his jaw tighten. All member species. The Council had 347 members now. Earth was not among them. "Sir, Admiral Richard Hayes is calling from Earth Defense Command," Karen said. Peter accepted the transmission. The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. His gray hair and weathered features, familiar after years of working together. "You watching this, Peter?" Richard asked. "Yes, sir." "Same as always." Richard leaned back in his chair. The office behind him was filled with star maps and tactical displays. "President Lisa Morgan wants to send another petition. She thinks maybe this time they'll listen." Peter did not hide his doubt. "We've sent 12 petitions, sir. They rejected all of them." "I know. But she's the president. She has to try." Richard paused. "Velrin sent a formal response to our last attempt. Want to hear it?" "Rallin. Thank you for watching. When unexpected, when a read readily stand departed." "Want to hear it?" "Not really, but go ahead." He said humanity is too young, too aggressive. Our technology is crude. We have nothing to offer the Council except problems. Richard's expression hardened. He actually used the word primitive. Karen made a disgusted sound from her station. Peter could not blame her. Humanity had built an entire defensive fleet in 50 years. They had colonies on Mars and Europa. They had faster-than-light drives that worked just fine. Primitive was an insult, nothing more. "What does the president want us to do?" Peter asked. "Keep monitoring. Keep watching. If anything changes, she wants to know immediately." Richard's image flickered slightly. "How are the deep space stations performing?" "All green. Beta 7 is still the furthest out, scanning the void beyond Council territory." "Good. At least we can see what they're doing, even if they won't talk to us." The transmission ended. Peter returned to the window, looking down at Earth below. 50 years of isolation had made humanity stronger in some ways. They learned to rely on themselves. They built their own ships, developed their own science, created their own path forward. But it still hurt to be excluded. 6 hours passed quietly. The Council Summit continued broadcasting, species after species, discussing matters that affected the whole galaxy. None of them mentioned Earth. It was like humanity did not exist. Then Greg Palmer's voice came through from the Deep Space Monitoring Network. Greg ran the analysis team at Station Beta 7, the furthest human outpost from Earth. He sounded excited and confused at the same time. "Unity Watch. This is Beta 7. We're picking up something unusual." Peter moved to the communication console. "Define unusual, Greg." "It's a signal. Not on any standard frequency. It's coming from deep space, way beyond Council territory, past the zone they marked as forbidden." Peter exchanged glances with Karen. The Forbidden Zone was a mystery. The Council had declared an entire region of space off-limits 200 years ago. They never explained why. They just said no one should go there, and every species obeyed. "Can you identify the source?" Peter asked. "Working on it now. The signal is definitely artificial. It's repeating in mathematical patterns. Prime numbers, universal constants, things any advanced civilization would recognize. Greg paused. Captain, I think it's a distress call. Karen pulled up the data on her screens. He's right, sir. This is someone asking for help. Peter felt his pulse quicken. From the Forbidden Zone? Yes, sir. The coordinates point to a location about 40 light-years past the Council's furthest border. Right in the middle of the area they told everyone to avoid. Could it be a Council ship in trouble? Negative. The signal format doesn't match any Council standard. It's old, sir. Really old. The encoding suggests technology from thousands of years ago. Peter thought about what this meant. Someone, or something in the Forbidden Zone was calling for help. The Council knew about that zone, had marked it off-limits, but never said why. Now, a distress signal came from exactly that location. Greg, can you decode the message? Partially. It's mathematical. Universal. I'm getting fragments. The words warning and failure keep appearing. And there's a countdown embedded in the signal. Countdown to what? Unknown. But whatever it is, we have maybe 3 weeks before it reaches 0. Peter made his decision quickly. He opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. Admiral Hayes appeared again, this time looking more alert. Sir, we have a situation. Station Beta 7 detected a distress signal from the Forbidden Zone. Richard leaned forward. Confirmed distress? Yes, sir. Mathematical patterns, universal language, definitely asking for help. And there's a countdown. Have you informed the Council? Not yet, sir, but they're still in summit session. We could send them the data. Richard was quiet for a moment, thinking. They'll ignore it. Just like they ignore everything from Earth. The question is, do we investigate ourselves? Peter knew what the Admiral was really asking. Did they risk sending a ship into forbidden space without permission? Did they act without Council approval? The signal is getting stronger, Greg reported. More urgent. Whatever is sending this, it's desperate. Richard made his choice. Prepare the frontier for launch. Commander Jake Morrison is ready for deep space assignment. Send him with a small crew. Science team. Pilot. Communications. Keep it minimal. Yes, sir. And if the Council objects, then they can send their own ship to investigate. But I doubt they will. Richard's expression was grim. They've been ignoring that zone for 2 centuries. I don't think they want to know what's there. Within 3 hours, the scout ship Frontier was ready. Commander Jake Morrison reviewed his crew aboard Unity Watch before departure. Helen Cross would pilot. Her skills among the best in the fleet. Daniel Price, a specialist in alien languages and communication, would work on decoding the full message. 2 engineers and a medical officer completed the team. This is a volunteer mission, Jake told them. We're going into space the Council says is forbidden. We don't know what's there. We don't know what we'll find. We know someone needs help, Helen said. That's enough. The Frontier launched from Earth orbit, its drives pushing it toward the edge of known space. On Nexus Prime, the Council summit continued, hundreds of species debating trade agreements and border disputes. None of them knew a human ship was heading toward the one place they had all agreed to avoid. Peter watched the Frontier disappear from his sensors, heading into darkness. Karen stood beside him, monitoring the ship's progress. Think they'll find anything? She asked. I think they'll find whatever the Council has been hiding, Peter said. And I think everything is about to change. In the void beyond the stars, the signal repeated. Warning. Failure. Time running out. And humanity, ignored and excluded for 50 years, was the only one answering the call. The Frontier moved through space at maximum velocity, leaving the familiar regions of the galaxy behind. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the captain's chair, watching the navigation displays as Helen Cross guided them toward the signal's coordinates. 3 days had passed since they left Earth orbit. Approaching Council border markers, Helen announced. Her hands moved smoothly across the pilot controls, crossing into forbidden territory in 30 seconds. Jake watched the boundary appear on their screens. Ancient buoys floated in the darkness, their surfaces covered in symbols from a language nobody had seen in centuries. The council had placed them here 200 years ago as warnings. Do not cross. Do not enter. No explanation given. Take us through, Jake said. The frontier passed the markers without incident. No alarms sounded. No council ships appeared to stop them. The Forbidden Zone looked like any other part of space, just emptier and darker. Daniel Price worked at the communication station, his eyes fixed on the patterns scrolling across his monitors. The signal is stronger now. I'm getting better fragments. There are multiple words embedded in the mathematics. What words? Jake asked. Prison, guardian, sealed, and something that translates roughly as awakening. Daniel looked up, concern on his face. Commander, I don't think this is a simple distress call. I think it's a warning about something breaking free. Jake felt cold despite the ship's steady temperature. Breaking free from what? Unknown. But the countdown we detected is definitely tied to some kind of containment failure. Whatever was sealed is coming loose. Helen adjusted their course slightly, navigating around a field of stellar debris. Commander, I'm picking up unusual readings ahead. Large metallic structures. They're not natural. The main view screen showed what her sensors detected. Massive pieces of wreckage floated in the void, each one the size of a city. The metal was dark and old, covered in strange patterns that seemed to shift in the starlight. These were not council ships. They were something far older. This is a debris field from an ancient battle, Daniel said, scanning the wreckage. These structures are at least 5,000 years old. Maybe older. 5,000 years? Helen sounded amazed. That's before most council species even had spaceflight. Jake leaned forward. Someone fought a war here. A big one. And the council knows about it. They moved deeper into the debris field, passing structures that defied understanding. Some looked like ships, but their design was completely alien. Others might have been stations or weapons platforms. All of them were broken, destroyed in some massive conflict that happened millennia ago. Signal source dead ahead, Daniel reported. 1 kilometer. On the view screen, a single structure came into focus. Unlike the wreckage around it, this one still had power. Faint lights glowed along its surface. It was smaller than the destroyed vessels, about the size of a large building, and it rotated slowly in space. That's where the distress call is coming from, Helen said. Jake studied the structure. It looked functional despite its age. Any signs of life? Scanning now. Daniel worked his controls. Yes. One life sign. Faint but stable. It's inside the structure. Take us in close. Prepare for docking. Helen brought the frontier alongside the ancient station with careful precision. Their docking collar extended and connected with a port that somehow still worked after thousands of years. The seal confirmed, and pressure equalized between the two vessels. Jake stood, checking his sidearm. Helen, stay with the ship. Keep engines hot in case we need to leave quickly. Daniel, you're with me. They moved through the airlock and into the station. Emergency lighting activated as they entered, responding to their presence. The interior was strange but beautiful. The walls showed symbols and equations that seemed to glow with their own light. The air was breathable, kept fresh by systems that had run for millennia without stopping. This technology is incredible, Daniel whispered. Whoever built this was far more advanced than the council is now. They followed the corridor deeper into the station. The symbols on the walls grew brighter as they walked, almost like the structure was waking up. At the center of the station, they found a chamber with a single platform. On that platform stood a figure. It was tall and thin, with smooth features that looked almost human but not quite. Its skin was pale blue, and its eyes were large and dark. It wore robes that might have been white once but had faded over countless years. The being did not move at first, simply watching as Jake and Daniel entered. Then it spoke. The words came directly into their minds, bypassing sound entirely. You came. After all this time, someone finally came. Jake kept his hand near his weapon but did not draw it. Who are you? I am Keeper 9, last guardian of the prison. The last of my people still performing our duty. The being's mental voice carried deep sadness. You are the ones called humans? Yes, I'm Commander Jake Morrison. This is Daniel Price. We detected your signal. The Council species did not respond to my call? The Council doesn't know we're here. They marked this area forbidden. They never explained why. Keeper 9 made a sound that might have been a laugh. Of course they did not explain. Their ancestors knew what we contained here. They knew, and they chose to forget. Easier to forbid the zone than to remember the danger. Daniel stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overcoming his caution. What danger? What is this prison you mentioned? The keeper moved toward a wall. It touched the surface, and images appeared. They showed a galaxy full of life and light. Beautiful civilizations. Advanced species. Worlds beyond counting. This was the galaxy 5,000 years ago, Keeper 9 said. My people, the precursors, were one of many great civilizations. We built wonders. We explored everything. We thought we knew all the dangers space could offer. The images changed. Darkness spread across the display like a stain. Stars went dark. Worlds turned gray and lifeless. Then we encountered the swarm. Not a species. Not even truly alive. A force that consumed everything it touched. Matter, energy, life itself. It ate entire solar systems and grew stronger with each world it devoured. Jake watched the images with growing horror. How did you stop it? We did not stop it. We only contained it. The Keeper's voice grew heavy with old pain. Every precursor civilization united. We fought the swarm for 200 years. Billions died, thousands of worlds were lost. Finally, we managed to trap it using technology that cost us everything to develop. The display showed a massive sphere being constructed in deep space. Ships from dozens of different precursor species working together to build a prison that could hold the impossible. We sealed the swarm inside a dimensional cage. A prison that exists slightly outside normal space. We set guardians to watch it forever. To ensure it never escaped. Keeper 9 looked at them directly. I am the last guardian. My people died millennia ago. Their civilizations crumbled. But I remained, keeping watch, maintaining the seals. And now the prison is failing, Daniel said quietly. Yes, the seals were designed to last forever. But forever is a long time. They are degrading. In less than 2 weeks, they will collapse completely. The swarm will be free again. Jake felt the weight of that statement. You sent the distress call to the Council species. Their ancestors must have known about this. They did. When the precursors fell, a few younger species were just beginning to explore space. We told them about the prison. We asked them to remember, to watch, to help if the seals ever failed. Keeper 9's sadness deepened. Instead, they marked this region forbidden and tried to forget. Easier than facing the responsibility. How do we stop the swarm from escaping? Jake asked. The prison can be repaired. The seals can be reinforced. But it requires technology, resources, and many ships, more than one small vessel can provide. The Keeper looked at Jake with something like hope. I called for help because the galaxy must know. The swarm cannot be allowed to escape. If it does, it will consume everything again. Every world, every species, everything you know will be destroyed. Daniel was recording everything, his equipment capturing the Keeper's words and the images on the walls. Commander, we need to get this information back to Earth. The Council has to act. The Council refused to help your species join their gatherings, Keeper 9 said. Why would they listen now? Jake met the ancient being's gaze. Because if they don't, everyone dies. Even them. He opened a communication channel to the frontier. Helen, prepare for immediate departure. We're returning to Earth. Found what you were looking for, Commander. We found something the galaxy tried to forget. And now we have to make them remember. Jake turned back to Keeper 9. We'll return, with help, however long it takes. You have 12 days, the Keeper said. After that, the prison fails. The swarm will be free. Jake and Daniel returned to the frontier quickly. As they undocked from the station, Jake looked at the vast debris field around them. Thousands of ships destroyed in an ancient war, an entire civilization sacrificed to save the galaxy. And the Council had chosen to ignore it all. Set course for Earth, Jake ordered. Maximum speed. Yes, sir. Helen engaged the drives. Commander, what did you find in there? The reason the Council doesn't want anyone in this zone. And proof that humanity needs to convince them to act, whether they like us or not. The frontier turned away from the ancient station and accelerated toward home. Behind them, Keeper 9 stood alone again, watching the prison sphere in the distance, watching the cracks grow larger, watching time run out. The galaxy had ignored the warning for 200 years. Now humanity would force them to pay attention. Jake only hoped it was not too late. President Lisa Morgan stood in the Situation Room beneath the Capitol, surrounded by monitors showing data from the Frontier's mission. Admiral Richard Hayes stood beside her, along with Chief Scientist Andrew Chen and half the military command staff. They had all watched Daniel Price's recordings 3 times now. 12 days, Lisa said quietly. 12 days until that prison fails, and something that destroyed an entire civilization gets loose. Andrew Chen pointed at the mathematical models on the central display. The degradation rate is exponential. Commander Morrison's measurements confirm what Keeper 9 told them. The containment field is collapsing. Once it reaches critical failure, there's no stopping it. Can we reinforce the prison ourselves? Richard asked. Not with what we have. We'd need at least 50 ships to provide enough power to stabilize the field. And even then, we'd need Council technology to repair the actual seal mechanisms. This is beyond our current capabilities. Lisa looked at the image of the swarm from the precursor records. Dark shapes that consumed light itself. Then we convinced the Council to help. They won't listen, Richard said bluntly. They've ignored us for 50 years. They think we're primitives. Why would they believe us about this? Because we have proof. Lisa gestured at the recordings. We have an actual precursor guardian, confirming everything. We have measurements of the prison failure. We have their own ancestors' records proving they knew about this. Ma'am, if I may. Andrew spoke up. There's another factor. The Council deliberately hid this information. They marked the zone forbidden, specifically to avoid dealing with it. Admitting the truth means admitting they abandoned their responsibility for 2 centuries. That's going to be politically difficult for them. Lisa felt anger rising. So they'll let everyone die rather than admit they were wrong? I'm saying we need to be prepared for resistance. Lisa made her decision. Contact Claire Foster. She's still on Nexus Prime, observing the summit, right? Yes, ma'am. The Council hasn't officially expelled her yet. She's been watching from the public galleries. Send her everything. All the data, all the recordings. Tell her to force her way into that Council chamber if she has to. They're going to hear this whether they want to or not. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Claire Foster received the transmission in her small quarters overlooking the Council complex. She had spent weeks trying to get humanity heard, only to be dismissed at every turn. Now she had information that could not be dismissed. She gathered the data files and headed directly to the Council chambers. The summit was in session. Hundreds of delegates debating some minor trade dispute. Claire walked past the guards at the entrance. They tried to stop her, but she kept moving. I have information critical to galactic security, she announced loudly. Information that affects every species in this room. Ambassador Velrin rose from his seat, his insectoid features showing clear annoyance. Ambassador Foster, you have no authority to interrupt these proceedings. Earth is not a Council member. Then you should have answered our petition, Claire shot back. She activated a portable projector, sending images to every screen in the chamber. 3 days ago, a human ship investigated the forbidden zone you all agreed to avoid. We found out why you marked it off limits. End quote. The recordings from the frontier played across multiple displays. Keeper 9 speaking. The ancient debris field. The prison sphere. The mathematical models showing its imminent failure. Claire let it run without interruption. The chamber grew silent. Delegates who had been arguing moments before now stared at the screens. Some looked shocked. Others looked afraid. A few looked guilty. "This is fabrication," Velrin declared. "Humans seeking attention by creating false threats. The data is real," Claire said coldly. "Your own security files confirm it. 200 years ago, your ancestors encountered precursor survivors. They were told about the prison. They were asked to watch and maintain it. Instead, you marked the zone forbidden and tried to forget." A crystalline being rose from the senior council seats. This was Arbiter Quellen, one of the oldest and most respected figures in the council. His voice resonated through the chamber like bells. "Security Chief Drenix, retrieve the classified files on the Forbidden Zone. Authorization Quellen Prime." A nervous-looking amphibian delegate hurried to a terminal. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then files appeared on the displays. Documents marked with the highest classification levels. Records from 200 years ago describing contact with precursor remnants. Warnings about the prison. Recommendations that it be monitored and maintained, and stamped across all of it. Filed and forgotten. Zone marked forbidden. "No further action required. By the ancestors," Quellen said softly. "It is true. We knew. Our predecessors knew and chose to hide it." Velrin's confidence wavered. "Even if this is accurate, sending forces to that region would be extremely expensive. It would require coordination between multiple fleets, the political complications alone." "Political complications?" Claire's voice cut through the chamber. "That thing breaks free in 12 days. When it does, it won't care about your politics. It will eat your worlds just like it ate the precursor civilization." "The humans are exaggerating the threat," another delegate said. "This swarm, if it exists, was contained 5,000 years ago. Our technology is far superior now. Superior to a civilization that built a prison lasting 5 millennia? Claire pulled up the precursor technology scans. "These people were more advanced than you are now. And the swarm destroyed them anyway." The chamber erupted into argument. Some species believed the threat. Others refused to accept it. Several demanded proof beyond human recordings. The debate went in circles, political concerns overriding existential danger. Quellen tried to restore order. "We must form a fleet immediately. The threat is clear." "Based on what evidence?" Velrin demanded. "Human testimony? They could have fabricated all of this. We should send our own scouts to verify before committing resources." "There's no time," Claire said. "You saw the failure rate. In 12 days, verification won't matter anymore." "Then the humans should handle it themselves," Velrin said. "They discovered it. They can deal with it." The argument continued for hours. Some species pledged support. Others refused. Many simply could not decide. The council that prided itself on unity was fracturing under pressure. Claire watched it all with growing despair. They were going to argue until it was too late. On Unity Watch, Peter Grant observed the council session broadcast with Karen Walsh. They could see the division, the hesitation, the political maneuvering. While time ran out. "They're not going to help," Karen said. "No, they're not." Peter opened a channel to Earth Defense Command. Admiral Richard Hayes appeared on the screen, his expression grim. "You watching this, Peter?" "Yes, sir. The council is deadlocked. Even if they decide to act, it'll take weeks to organize a joint fleet." "We don't have weeks." Richard nodded slowly. "President Morgan is addressing the planet in 10 minutes. I think you can guess what she's going to say." Peter could guess. Earth would act alone. The president's broadcast reached every screen on Earth and in human space. Lisa Morgan stood in front of the planetary flag, her expression resolute. "My fellow citizens, 3 days ago, our ship the Frontier discovered a threat to our galaxy. A weapon of unimaginable power that will be released in 12 days unless we act. The Galactic Council is debating what to do. They may decide to help. They may not. But Earth cannot wait for their decision." She paused, letting the weight settle. I am ordering the full mobilization of Earth Defense Fleet. Every ship, every crew. We will go to the prison and attempt to reinforce its containment. We may not have the technology the Council possesses, we may not have their numbers, but we have something they seem to have forgotten. We have the courage to act when action is needed. On military bases across Earth and its colonies, alarms sounded. Crews rushed to their ships, 47 vessels, the entire military capability humanity had built in 50 years, prepared for immediate deployment. Admiral Richard Hayes took command aboard the EDS Valiant, the fleet's largest ship. Around him, the bridge crew worked with focused intensity. Karen Walsh had transferred from Unity Watch to serve as tactical coordinator. Greg Palmer's entire analysis team from Station Beta 7 was coming along to provide scientific support. All ships report ready, sir, Karen announced. Richard looked at the display showing Earth below. Millions of people watching, hoping, trusting that their defenders would protect not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. Fleet will depart in 1 hour, Richard ordered. Coordinate with Commander Morrison on the frontier. He'll guide us to the prison coordinates. On Nexus Prime, a junior aide named Threxus watched the human broadcast from his small office. He was young by Council standards, barely into his second century. He had access to communication networks across the member species. He began sending messages to younger delegates, to species that had shown sympathy for Earth, to anyone who might listen. The humans are going alone to face an ancient threat. They have 47 ships. The prison requires hundreds to properly secure. If they fail, we all die. This is not about politics. This is survival. Some ignored him, but others began to pay attention. The Earth fleet assembled in formation above their homeworld. 47 ships against a threat that destroyed civilizations. Richard Hayes knew the odds. Everyone did. But they were going anyway. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Council, Karen said. It's from Arbiter Quellen. Richard accepted it. The crystalline being's face appeared on screen. Admiral Hayes. I wanted you to know that some of us recognize what you are doing. The Council remains divided. But there are those working to change that. Will you send help, Arbiter? I cannot promise. But I will try. Your courage may shame others into action. The transmission ended. Richard looked at his crew. That's all we can hope for. Helm, prepare for departure. The fleet engaged their drives simultaneously. 47 ships leaving Earth behind, heading into the unknown to protect a galaxy that had never given them respect. On the surface, President Lisa Morgan watched them go. Andrew Chen stood beside her. They might not come back, Andrew said quietly. I know, but they're going anyway. That's what makes them heroes. In the council chambers, the argument continued. Velrin insisted it was a human problem. Quellen demanded immediate action. Others simply remained paralyzed by indecision. Claire Foster left the chamber in disgust. She sent one final message to Earth. The council is still debating. But some species are listening. Keep fighting. We'll try to send help. The Earth fleet raced through space toward the prison. Behind them, the council argued. Ahead of them, ancient seals continued to fail. And time kept counting down. 12 days had become 11. The Earth fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the coordinates Jake Morrison had provided. Admiral Richard Hayes stood on the bridge of the EDS Valiant, staring at the massive structure floating in the void ahead. The prison sphere was enormous, easily 10 times the size of Earth's moon. Its surface was covered in patterns that glowed with faint blue light, symbols from a dead civilization maintaining their eternal purpose. But cracks had formed in the sphere's surface. Through those cracks, darkness moved. By all that's sacred, Karen Walsh whispered from the tactical station. It's real. All of it. Distance to the prison? Richard asked. 50,000 kilometers in holding, sir. Positioning the fleet in a defensive grid around the structure as planned. Quote, the 47 ships spread out, creating a protective sphere around the prison. They looked tiny compared to the ancient construct, like insects surrounding a building, but they were all Earth had. Jake Morrison's voice came through from the frontier. "Admiral, I'm establishing contact with Keeper 9. He's still functional and aware of our arrival. Put him through." The mental voice of the ancient guardian reached the bridge. "You returned. And you brought others of your kind. I am grateful. But I must tell you the truth. 47 ships cannot stabilize the prison. You need hundreds. The power requirements alone exceed what you can provide." "We know," Richard said. "But we're here anyway. Maybe the Council will send help. Maybe they won't. Either way, we're going to try." There was a pause. When Keeper 9 spoke again, his voice carried something that might have been surprise. "Your species is either very brave or very foolish. Both, usually," Richard said. "What can you tell us about the swarm?" "They are not alive in any way you understand. They do not think. They only consume. Energy, matter, biological tissue. Everything becomes fuel for their replication. They adapt quickly to any attack. Energy weapons feed them. Most physical weapons they simply absorb. Your only advantage is they require time to analyze and counter new threats. How long do we have before the prison fails?" "Hours. The largest crack is expanding rapidly. When it reaches critical width, the dimensional seal will collapse entirely." Richard turned to his crew. "All ships, connect power systems to the prison's field generators. Maybe we can buy more time." Across the fleet, human vessels extended energy tethers toward the ancient structure. Their reactors strained to provide power to systems thousands of years more advanced. The blue glow of the prison's surface brightened slightly. The expansion of the cracks slowed, but did not stop. "It's working," Greg Palmer reported from his science station. "We're reducing the degradation rate by approximately 30%. It's not enough to stop it, but it gives us more time." "How much more?" Richard asked. "Maybe 6 hours instead of 2. That's the best we can do." 6 hours. Richard calculated quickly. If the Council was going to send help, they needed to arrive within that window. He opened a transmission to Nexus Prime, broadcasting on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Richard Hayes, of the Earth Defense Fleet. We are currently at the prison coordinates, attempting to prevent catastrophic containment failure. Our 47 ships are insufficient. We require immediate assistance from any Council species willing to help. If anyone is listening, we need you now." He sent the message and waited. No response came. The fleet maintained their positions for 3 hours. The prison's glow fluctuated as human ships poured everything they had into maintaining the field. Crews worked double shifts, pushing their reactors to maximum output. Then the largest crack split wider with a sound that seemed to echo through space itself despite the vacuum. Alarms blared across every ship's sensors. "Breach forming," Karen announced. "The seal is rupturing." On the view screen, darkness poured through the expanding crack. Not the darkness of empty space, but something deeper, something wrong. The darkness moved with purpose, forming into distinct shapes. Each shape was roughly the size of a transport ship, but their forms kept shifting, never quite solid. "Swarm entities detected," Greg called out. 14 contacts. They're emerging from the breach. "All ships, combat alert," Richard ordered. "Prepare to engage." The swarm entities moved toward the nearest human vessel, the EDS Guardian. Captain Olivia Barnes commanded that ship, a veteran of border patrols and pirate encounters. Her voice came through calm and steady. "Guardian to fleet, we have incoming. Permission to fire?" "Granted. All ships engage at will." The Guardian opened fire with its railguns, sending solid projectiles at incredible velocity toward the swarm entities. The rounds struck the nearest shape, tearing through it. The entity seemed to pause, pieces of it scattering. But then the pieces reformed, pulling back together. "Kinetic weapons have minimal effect," Olivia reported. "They just pull themselves back together." Another ship, the EDS Liberty, fired energy weapons. Laser beams and plasma bolts struck the entities. This time the reaction was different. The swarm shapes seemed to absorb the energy, growing slightly larger and moving faster. "Negative on energy weapons," the Liberty's captain reported. "They're feeding on it. All ships. Kinetic weapons only," Richard ordered. "Continuous fire. Don't give them time to recover." The fleet opened up with everything that fired solid rounds. Railguns, missiles, ballistic cannons. Everything designed to hit with physical force. The swarm entities took damage but kept coming, reforming faster than the ships could destroy them. One entity reached the Guardian. It touched the ship's hull and simply began dissolving it. Metal turned to gray dust that the swarm absorbed. Alarms screamed as hull breaches formed. "Guardian is compromised." Olivia's voice remained steady even as her ship died around her. "All hands. Abandon ship. I repeat, abandon." Escape pods launched from the Guardian as the swarm entity consumed it section by section. The EDS Valiant moved in close, tractoring the pods to safety while firing on the entity destroying the Guardian. Other ships focused their weapons, pouring fire into the swarm shape until it finally dispersed into particles too small to maintain cohesion. But the Guardian was gone, and more entities were pouring through the breach every minute. "Count now at 43 swarm entities," Greg reported. "The breach is expanding. At this rate, we'll have hundreds within the hour." Richard made quick calculations. They had 46 ships left, and the enemy numbers were growing exponentially. This was not a battle they could win through attrition. "We need a new strategy. Suggestions?" Jake Morrison's voice came through. "Sir, Keeper 9 says the swarm haven't fully adapted to our weapons yet. They're still analyzing our technology. If we hit them with something completely unexpected, we might destroy more before they learn to counter it." "What do you suggest?" "Nuclear weapons. We've never used them in space combat before. The swarm won't have encountered them. It might work once, before they adapt." Richard made his decision. "All ships with nuclear payloads. Prepare for launch. Target the largest concentration of swarm entities. Fire on my command." 6 ships launched nuclear-tipped missiles toward a cluster of swarm shapes. The missiles struck and detonated in brilliant flashes of light. The explosions vaporized everything in their radius. 15 swarm entities disintegrated instantly. Unable to reform from atoms scattered across thousands of kilometers. "Direct hit," Karen reported. "Confirmed destruction of multiple targets." But as the light faded, Richard saw the remaining entities had already changed. They moved differently now, keeping distance from each other to prevent multiple casualties from one blast. "They had learned. They adapted," Greg said. "Next time the nukes won't be as effective." Lows. More entities poured through the breach. The count rose to 70. Then 90. The Earth fleet fought desperately, but ships were taking damage. The EDS Liberty lost its main engines and drifted helpless. The EDS Defender had its entire port side consumed before destroying its attacker. Richard opened fleet communications. "All ships, fall back to secondary positions. Prepare for close combat protocol." Karen looked at him. "Sir, we can't hold them. There are too many." "I know, but we hold anyway." He sent another transmission toward Nexus Prime. "This is Admiral Hayes. The swarm has breached containment. We are engaging, but we cannot hold without support. If anyone can hear this, we need help now." Silence answered him. On the far edge of the battle, several ships that were not human watched from a safe distance. Council observer vessels, sent by species who wanted to verify the threat but refused to commit their militaries. They recorded everything, watching as Earth's fleet fought alone against impossible odds. Aboard the largest observer ship, Ambassador Velrin watched the battle displays. His earlier certainty had crumbled. The threat was real. The humans were dying to stop it. And the Council was still debating. "Send a transmission to Nexus Prime," Velrin said quietly to his communications officer. "Full tactical data. Show them what is happening here." Across the other observer ships, similar decisions were being made. The species who had refused to believe were now watching proof unfold before them. Young Aid Threxus received the data feeds and immediately broadcast them to the entire Council. In the Council chambers on Nexus Prime, the debate stopped as screens filled with images of the battle. Human ships fighting, dying, buying time with their lives while the council talked. Arbiter Quellen rose, his crystalline form blazing with light. Enough. The humans are sacrificing themselves while we argue about politics. I invoke the ancient protocols. Existential threat confirmed. All member species will contribute military forces immediately. Several delegates tried to object. Quellen's voice overwhelmed them all. This is not a debate. This is survival. Our ancestors abandoned their duty. We will not make the same mistake. He turned to the military coordinators. Send everything, every available ship from every species, and send them now. Orders went out across the council networks. From 15 different species, fleets began mobilizing. Over 300 ships prepared for immediate departure toward the prison coordinates, but they were hundreds of light years away. Even at maximum speed, it would take hours to arrive. At the prison, the Earth fleet was down to 38 operational ships. The swarm count exceeded 200 entities and continued growing. Richard Hayes knew they could not last much longer. "Sir, I'm getting power fluctuations," Greg reported. "The reactors can't maintain this output indefinitely. How long can we hold? 2 hours. Maybe less. 2 hours to hold against an enemy that kept multiplying." Richard looked at the tactical display. Seeing his ships clustered around the prison like ancient warriors making their last stand, he thought about Earth. About the billions of people who would never know what happened here if they failed. About a galaxy that had ignored and dismissed humanity for 50 years, now relying on those same humans to save them. "All ships," Richard transmitted. "This is the Admiral. I know you're tired. I know the odds look bad. But somewhere out there, people are counting on us. The Council might send help. They might not. But we're going to hold this line until relief arrives, or until there's nothing left to hold with. We're going to show them what humans can do." Across the fleet, crews responded with determination. They had come here knowing the cost. They would pay it if necessary. The battle continued. Ships died. The swarm grew. And time kept counting down. The Earth fleet had been fighting for 5 hours when Karen Walsh detected the first new signatures on her sensors. Her voice cracked with exhaustion but also hope. "Admiral, I'm reading incoming ships. Multiple faster than light signatures. They're not swarm. They're council vessels. Over though." Richard Hayes looked up from the tactical display where he had been watching another human ship take critical damage. The EDS Horizon was venting atmosphere, its crew abandoning to other vessels while swarm entities closed in. "How many ships?" Richard asked. "Still counting, sir. More than 50. No, more than 100. They're still arriving." Karen's voice rose with disbelief. "Sir, I'm reading over 300 vessels from 15 different species. On the view screen, space filled with ships. Sleek council cruisers with advanced shields. Heavy battleships bristling with weapons humanity had never seen. Support carriers deploying smaller craft. The armada that Earth had begged for had finally arrived. A transmission came through on all frequencies. Arbiter Quellen's crystalline face appeared on every screen. "Admiral Hayes. This is Council Battle Fleet under Ancient Protocol Emergency Authority. We received your distress call. Forgive our delay." The Arbiter's voice carried genuine regret. "Earth is no longer alone. All ships, engage the swarm. Protect the humans. They have earned our support." Richard felt something release in his chest. Relief. Gratitude. Hope. "Council Fleet. This is Hayes. Welcome to the fight. Transferring tactical data now." The Council ships moved into formation with practiced precision. Their shields lit up as swarm entities turned toward these new targets. Advanced energy barriers absorbed attacks that would have destroyed human vessels. Council weapons fired. Beams of exotic energy that actually damaged the swarm more effectively than anything Earth had managed. But the swarm had grown massive during the hours of battle. Over 400 entities now swarmed around the prison, and the breach continued expanding. Even with Council reinforcements, the fight was far from over. "All ships. Defensive grid formation," Quellen ordered. "Create overlapping fields around the prison. Do not let any swarm entities escape the containment zone. Human and alien ships worked together, creating a sphere of vessels around the ancient structure. The combined fleet numbered over 330 ships now, the largest military force assembled in modern galactic history. Helen Cross piloted the Frontier through the battle, her skills tested like never before. She dodged between larger ships, using the Scout's maneuverability to draw swarm entities into kill zones where Council battleships could hit them with massed fire. Frontier, this is Quellan. Your pilot has exceptional skill. Where did she train? On Earth, sir, Jake Morrison answered. All our pilots train on Earth. Remarkable. Have her coordinate with our fast attack wings. She understands spatial tactics better than many of our veterans. Helen found herself leading a squadron of alien fighters, her human instincts and training working perfectly with their advanced technology. Together they harried the swarm, breaking up larger formations before they could mass for attacks on the capital ships. On the EDS Valiant, Greg Palmer worked frantically with Council scientists to develop better strategies. The swarm adapts to everything eventually, but there's a delay. If we rotate weapon types in sequence, we can stay ahead of their learning curve. A Council technician, a being made of flowing light, nodded in agreement. Your analysis is correct. Coordinate with all ships. Establish rotation pattern, kinetic, energy, exotic matter. Repeat. The combined fleet implemented the strategy. Ships fired in carefully timed sequences, each weapon type effective for a few crucial seconds before the swarm adapted. Then the next type would hit while the swarm reconfigured. It was not perfect, but it worked. Slowly, the tide began to turn. The swarm's numbers stopped growing as fast. Entities were being destroyed faster than new ones could emerge from the breach. Daniel Price worked with Keeper 9 and Council engineers on the real solution. Destroying swarm entities was temporary. They needed to seal the prison permanently. The repair requires focusing energy into the seal matrix at specific harmonic frequencies, Keeper 9 explained. But maintaining those frequencies while under attack is extremely difficult. We'll give you the time, Richard said. Just tell us what you need. 30 ships to channel power directly into the prison core. They must maintain exact formation for 6 hours, while the seal regenerates. Any disruption will reset the process. Richard looked at his remaining fleet. Earth was down to 19 operational ships now. But the Council had over 200 still battle-ready. Quellan, can your ships provide the power required? We can. But they will be vulnerable while channeling energy. They cannot raise shields or maneuver defensively. 21. We can stabs club some faner, and leaving, then the rest of us will protect them. Earth ships and Council escorts form defensive perimeter. Engineering vessels take positions for the repair. The fleet reorganized. 30 advanced Council ships moved into precise positions around the prison, extending energy tethers into its core. Blue light began flowing from their reactors into the ancient structure. The prison's glow intensified, and the cracks in its surface slowly started to close. But the swarm sensed what was happening. The entities abandoned their attacks on the defensive ships and focused everything on the vulnerable engineering vessels channeling power. They're adapting their tactics, Karen warned. All swarm entities converging on the repair ships. All defensive vessels, maximum effort, Richard ordered. Do not let them through. What followed was the most intense fighting of the entire battle. Human ships and Council escorts threw themselves between the swarm and the engineering vessels. Ships took terrible damage. The EDS Courage lost half its crew when a swarm entity breached their hull. A Council cruiser called the Bright Star deliberately rammed a cluster of entities to prevent them from reaching the repair formation. Richard watched his ship count dropping. 15 human vessels left, 12, 10. Each loss felt personal. These were his people, his crews, dying to buy time for the galaxy. Repair at 40%, Daniel reported. But we need 3 more hours. 3 hours felt like an eternity. Jake Morrison saw the mathematics clearly. At current losses, they would not have enough ships to maintain the defensive screen. The swarm would break through before the seal completed. He opened a private channel to Admiral Hayes. Sir, I have a proposal. It's not good, but it might work. Tell me, if we create a series of cascading reactor overloads, we can generate massive explosions to push the swarm back. Give the repair teams uninterrupted time to finish. Richard understood immediately what Jake was suggesting. Deliberate ship destruction. Suicide runs. Yes, sir. Volunteers only. But it would work. Richard closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened fleet communications. All ships. This is Admiral Hayes. We need volunteers for a special operation. Controlled reactor overloads to create defensive barriers. I won't lie to you. The crews will need to evacuate. But some may not make it out in time. This is strictly voluntary. Silence fell across the fleet. Then Captain Olivia Barnes, who had lost her ship the Guardian hours ago and now commanded the EDS Resolute, responded. Resolute volunteering, sir. We've already lost one ship today. Might as well make the next one count. Other voices followed. Human captains, council commanders, veterans and newcomers alike. Within minutes, 12 ships had volunteered. Evacuate all non-essential personnel, Richard ordered. Engineering teams stay to manage the overload sequence. Everyone else gets to safety. Escape pods began launching from the volunteer ships. Most crews made it out, but the engineering teams stayed, knowing they would have only seconds to escape after initiating the overload. The 12 ships moved into position, creating a barrier between the swarm and the repair vessels. Their reactors began building toward critical mass. Richard Hayes made his decision. The Valiant would be one of them. Karen, evacuate the crew, he ordered. Sir, you need to evacuate too, she protested. I'm staying. Someone needs to coordinate the detonation sequence. That's me. Then I'm staying too, Karen said firmly. You need a tactical officer. Karen, with respect, sir, shut up and let me do my job. Other bridge officers refused to leave as well. Greg Palmer, the pilot, the communications officer. They were all staying. Richard felt pride overwhelming his fear. All right. All ships. Prepare for controlled detonation. On my mark. The 12 ships held position as the swarm entities swarmed toward them. Reactors climbed past safety limits. Warning alarms screamed. The crews had seconds to make final decisions. For Earth, Richard transmitted, and for the galaxy, detonate. The 12 ships exploded simultaneously. The combined force created a wall of energy and debris that simply erased hundreds of swarm entities. The blast wave pushed the remaining entities back, away from the vulnerable repair vessels. On his view screen, Richard saw the shockwave approaching. He had 1 second to feel satisfied that the plan worked. Then the EDS Valiant disintegrated. Jake Morrison watched from the frontier, horror and grief washing over him. The Valiant was gone. Admiral Hayes was gone. Karen Walsh, Greg Palmer, all of them, but their sacrifice had worked. The repair vessels continued their work uninterrupted. The prison seals regenerated faster now, glowing brighter. The breach began closing. Arbiter Quellen's voice came through, heavy with sorrow and respect. All ships, honor the fallen. Complete the mission they died for. Repair teams, maintain position. Helen Cross wiped tears from her face but kept flying. Daniel Price worked through his grief. Focusing on the technical data, the surviving fleet held the line while the repair continued. 2 more hours passed. The swarm's numbers dwindled as the breach narrowed. Entities that had escaped the prison were destroyed, one by one. Finally, the last crack sealed shut. The prison sphere glowed brilliant blue, whole and complete again. Keeper 9's mental voice reached every ship. The seal is restored. The swarm is contained. Thank you. All of you. Your sacrifice saved the galaxy. The battle was over. The surviving fleet held position in exhausted silence. Of Earth's original 47 ships, only 7 remained operational. The Council had lost 80 vessels. Over 30,000 beings had died, most of them human. On Nexus Prime, the Council chambers fell silent as casualty reports arrived. The species who had debated and delayed now saw the cost of their hesitation. Ambassador Velron stood, his voice shaking. I was wrong. About everything. About humanity. About the threat. About our responsibilities. He looked directly at Claire Foster. I apologize to Earth and to all the humans who died because we would not listen. Claire Foster felt anger and grief warring inside her. But she also felt something else. Purpose. Apologies don't bring back the dead, Ambassador. But they're a start. Arbiter Quellen addressed the Council. Emergency session is now concluded. Regular session begins immediately with one agenda item: Earth's admission to the Galactic Council. All in favor? The vote was unanimous. 3 weeks later, a memorial service was held in space near the prison. Ships from dozens of species gathered. A monument was constructed from pieces of the destroyed vessels, human and alien metal fused together. President Lisa Morgan spoke at the ceremony, her voice broadcast across the galaxy. We honor those who stood when others would not. Who fought when the odds seemed impossible. Who gave everything so that others might live. They were human. They were alien. But above all, they were heroes. Names were read. Richard Hayes, Karen Walsh, Greg Palmer, Olivia Barnes, hundreds more. Each name was followed by a moment of silence, and a single light added to the memorial. Jake Morrison stood with Helen Cross and Daniel Price, watching the ceremony. They had survived, but so many had not. They earned Earth's place, Helen said quietly. Not through politics, through courage. And now we have to live up to that standard, Daniel added. Above Earth, construction had already begun. Joint Human Council shipyards were being built in orbit. New vessels were being designed, combining human ingenuity with Council technology. The galaxy's newest member species was not starting from behind anymore. Claire Foster returned to Earth as the planet's first official Council ambassador. She established a diplomatic corps, training the next generation of representatives. Peter Grant was promoted to command the Joint Defense Initiatives, working with Council military leaders to establish protocols for future threats. Unity Watch became the headquarters for galactic coordination. Helen Cross founded a pilot training program where humans and aliens learned from each other. Her name became legendary among both groups. Daniel Price led the effort to catalog and preserve precursor knowledge, working with Keeper 9 to understand the ancient civilization's wisdom. The prison would be maintained forever now, with rotating crews from multiple species sharing the responsibility. 1 year after the battle, the first Joint Human Council vessel launched. It was called the EDS Valiant, named for the ship and the admiral who had sacrificed everything. Its crew was mixed, humans serving alongside beings from a dozen different species. At the launch ceremony, Arbiter Quellen spoke to the assembled crowd. For 50 years, we ignored Earth. We dismissed them as primitive, as unworthy of our notice. Then, when crisis came, they stood alone and showed us what true courage means. Today we do not just accept Earth into our council. We thank them for teaching us what we had forgotten. That strength is not measured in technology or ancient lineage, but in the willingness to do what is right, regardless of cost. The Valiant departed on its maiden voyage, heading out to explore regions the Council had never dared to investigate. On board, human and alien crew members worked side by side, no longer separated by prejudice or politics. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Earth had earned its place, not through begging or politics, but through the oldest truth in the universe. When it mattered most, they stood together. They fought together. And they proved that courage and sacrifice speak louder than any words. The prison remained sealed, its ancient structure now protected by permanent defensive stations. Keeper 9 was no longer alone. Volunteers from Earth and the Council took turns maintaining the watch, ensuring that what had been contained would never escape again. In the void where the battle had been fought, the monument floated. Its inscription was simple, written in every known language. They stood together when it mattered most, and the galaxy remembered.